What's happening, gang? So, hey, Facebook Live, right? This is Truth Radio, the live version. And I'm flanked by some of the most esteemed cats that I could rally up in the last 5 minutes before going the show here. So, Transient Gardner and Dude roaming the hallways. I think you were looking for the bathroom. Trump-conomics? The reality is this, gang. There's a lot of questions that folks have right now, especially germane specifically to our local real estate market. So I'll do formal introductions here in a little bit. In the meantime, Nate, what would happen if somebody Googled Trump, the economy, and San Diego real estate all in the same search bar?
Geez, I have no idea.
Would their computer explode?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I don't know. You'd probably get some random articles or something, but I don't know why you would want to.
Yeah.
I don't know why you'd want to. Personally, the way that I see Trump's effect on San Diego is it's more high level. It's what his policies are at the national level. And, it's only 4 years. I mean, the way that I see San Diego, and especially for the rest of the economy right now, is just that it's the year of the unknown. And there's a lot of people trying to figure out, what does Trump stuff mean? What policies are going to happen? We don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of speculation. You look at the stock market, and there's tons of speculation as to what he's going to do. But from what I've seen, it's more of just a concentration on immigration and building a wall and that kind of stuff versus more of the economic policies like the tax reform, which we're now just getting a little bit of, and all the other promises that he made that would stimulate business. I haven't seen any plans on that would stimulate the economy. So when I see things like the stock market going haywire, and we don't have a set policies in place that actually justify that, it's all just kind of talk right now.
Yeah.
And the way I see it is, it's 4 years of having that effect of whatever effect it is. But for right now, I don't think anybody knows what it is. It's just an unknown year.
And you're bringing up a lot of points that I want to hit on today. So thanks for kind of laying that 30,000 foot. And by the way, if this is spawning something for you, gang, hey, this is live, right, Claire? So if you guys want to text in any questions that you might have, I mean, it's rare that you get such an esteemed panel. And again, I'll introduce you guys here in a second. But what do you guys think about that? So I know you guys, you're dealing more in the throes of the real estate market, specifically in finance. We had a pretty entertaining last couple months from the election and what happened right after that, and then when they took office, and the rates, and then the Dodd-Frank, and then the FH, a lot of stuff going on. So what do you think would come up if one of your clients threw that in the search bar of Google's?
San Diego, Trump, and the economy. Well, I think their first thought would be, I need to do something. Not sure exactly what, but I need to either lock in my low interest rate now through a refinance, or if I'm renting, I need to buy before rates go even higher. But it's the effect of the election, I think, was what most of the people were predicting. The opposite happened. We thought that if Clinton was elected, we would see rates get better. And if Trump was elected, they would go up. Well, I should say that's the opposite was predicted. And what happened was Trump got elected, and rates immediately shot up within the 3 days after the election in that short week that we had.
Yeah, one of the biggest week-over-week bumps, I think, since the Great Recession, right?
Yes, and the single biggest jump we've seen since May of 2013.
Right.
Yeah, it was a half a point in a week.
Yeah.
So that went fast. I think that's probably the biggest impact, even though that was probably a more national impact. We did see that in terms of San Diego itself, the effect of people being able to buy homes. And I think this is expanded a little bit, or almost exaggerated in markets that have high dollar housing. So you look at San Diego and Northern California and the San Francisco area, that small incremental jumps in interest rate have a big impact.
Because
of the dollar cost of interest rate rise. So on your mortgage payment, if you're trying to buy, that's whether you're trying to buy, whether you're trying to refinance or manipulate financing. Yeah, that's going to be true for everything.
We've got a confluence of a lot of circumstances here, I think, in San Diego, being that we're a military city, and we're definitely going to hit on that a little bit. But I know that you guys work with a lot of first-time home buyers. on the financing side, of course, we as well on the real estate side. Nate, what do you think this is going to do for the first-time buyer pool? As we sort of move in, as you said, the sort of dust settles and we kind of figure out where we're all going to land with this, right? What do you think the direct and maybe even sometimes indirect effect is going to have on the, the millennials or the first-time buyers or even the military folks?
I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference. You talk about a half a point increase. I mean, that's a couple $100, I'm guessing, in a monthly payment. But I think with the interest rates going up, it just means you're going to be paying more interest than principal on your loan. It does affect your purchasing power.
Right.
So I think it could price out a lot of the first-time home buyers because they can't compete with those who are maybe move up or have a bigger down payment, and they can't afford that much of a loan because they're now paying more interest on the loan.
Yeah.
But it's basically going to make it more difficult for those first-time buyers and especially millennials that are already having a hard time trying to save up money and make it in San Diego to begin with.
Yeah. And then, of course, this flies right into the crosshairs of the number one gripe for millennials, which is, of course, is student debt, right? Yeah. And so it's kind of almost like their first mortgage right out of the gate, and arguably there's not enough left over for them to kind of jump in, so they get the waiting to launch effect. Trump's actually even talked a little bit about student loan debt and some of the stuff that he's planning on doing that. But do you see this improving in the short term, or do you see this actually getting worse for the first-time buyer cats?
The student loan thing, or
yeah,
the
just
whole
that relationship
just the
between
relationship
how much
of
money
that and buying a home?
Exactly.
I don't think it's going to get any easier for young people to buy a place.
Yeah.
And I think more, especially in coastal communities, so not just San Diego, but anywhere that's supply constrained, we're not building enough homes to make prices affordable. That's not just San Diego. In California, we've only built half the amount of homes we need the last 10 years just to accommodate population growth.
Yeah.
So when you talk about all these first-time home buyers, there's not enough homes for them to buy anyways. And as we all know, the home goes to the highest bidder. And it's not going to be that first-time home buyer. It's going to be either the move-up or the retiree that's coming out here to California from who knows where else outside of the state that has some equity and can buy it all cash. It's a very difficult market, and it's hard to compete. You go to North County, last year, 1/3 of the sales, 1 out of every 3 sales was all cash. Wow. And you're closing quickly. Now it's about 1 in 4, but that's still a high number.
That's still a really high number.
So how do you compete with that? How do you compete with that if you're a first-time home buyer and you have to qualify for financing, or maybe you want to sell and you have to give some notice and you've got to have a little bit of time? It's going to go straight to that cash buyer. So it's just a very competitive environment, and a lot of it has to do with just there's not enough housing opportunities.
You're bringing up a lot of great stuff for me, and Nathan, I'm so grateful to have you here in the panel. Nathan Mader, by the way, gang, I mean, he's a principal over at the London Group. Probably the absolute definition of the alphabet soup after the name game. You've got the Masters in Science and Real Estate. Obviously, you guys are doing big things over there at the London Group. I mean, finance, investment, valuation expert, all things feasibility. Gang, what say you about that? So, if this is your bread and butter, the millennial game, first-time buyers, and I love we're gonna hit on some military points here in a little bit too. Where do you see the short-term impact on your alpha camp?
Yeah. Well, the numbers, I think you said a couple $100 on a payment. So $600,000 home, 20% down. In that scenario, a 0.5% increase is about $140 a month in mortgage obligation. Now, that's maybe not a life-changing number when it's taken in a vacuum, but the challenge becomes that most people are qualifying for as much as they possibly can.
Yeah.
And so rather than that being, hey, I got to pay a little bit more for that house, it's I can't buy that house anymore. And that's a tricky little thing that's happening. Yeah. So in terms of that incremental change in the economics of home buyers, I think that's where we really see people feel that. The other thing that I've noticed is, last year I had a lot of people who were kind of hanging back because their investments were performing poorly, and that was the source of their down payment. And I see a lot of people coming back because they got that money back right now.
Interesting.
So that's kind of a cool flip side to this, where we have a little bit of an interest rate environment where it's increasing, but people are reaping the benefits on the backside of that, which is their investment portfolio.
And that's well said, and so maybe hedging or the other side of that conversation with respect to time, the ultimate true-all is that rents are up. I feel like everybody's feeling the pinch of that. So for the millennial, for the first-time buyer, maybe even the cats who are here, for 4 years with the military and they're trying to decide whether to make that jump or not, they're getting that push from their landlord's new assessment of lease terms for the next 12 months, right? And I was looking up, they're set to increase by 3.6% again in 2017. Ouch. And I can't remember the jump last year, but I feel like it was one of the biggest jumps.
8.6.
Right.
Ooh. Wow.
And so this is now cumulative, and then it's not getting any better because in 2018 it's supposed to jump another 3.4%, right? So we've got otherwise favorable conditions of low unemployment, strong job growth, and low vacancies. But there's no new inventory, Nathan, as you had kind of mentioned right there. So what say you about the problems that are going to be facing this camp moving forward if they're getting shoved out by one side with high rents, but then there's no entry-level housing for them to get into?
Well, I know in my experience I've found that there are a lot of first-time home buyers out there that are assuming they are priced out of the market right out of the gate. They don't feel like they even should look into it because there's just no opportunity there. And I think that a lot more people actually can afford to buy a home than they realize. Now,
so is it emotional then?
Well, it's all of that, but it's, I think, mostly to do with the fact that they're just not aware of the fact that that is a possibility for them. Now, what comes with that possibility is maybe something they're not prepared for, which is a lot of sacrifice or some creative ways of getting into the housing market. But we do have a lot of programs that go unused every year that could help first-time home buyers. Now, it's like what Nate was saying about competitive. I mean, how can a first-time home buyer compete with an all-cash offer? They can't. But we can bridge that gap. We can narrow it considerably. And I think that from what we know in our practice is that we're helping first-time home buyers, second-time home buyers all the time. So there is opportunity out there.
I think what you said without maybe saying it is that a lot of it has to do with putting a good plan in place. So we meet with a lot of people who are 6 months, 12 months out, sometimes 2 years out.
Right.
And they don't know how to get where they want to be. They just know they want to buy a house. So what do you do in between then? And oftentimes if they go fill out an application, it's no. So they don't fill out the application, they don't talk to someone like us.
Right.
But the key is if they can get in a conversation with someone like us, we can lay the roadmap out, then there are some simple steps that of course do take time that they can put themselves in a position to be more competitive against, say, a cash buyer. And really, I defer to the realtor in the room about competitiveness in terms of cash offers, right? The cash guy wants a deal most of the time.
Right.
Exactly.
So your benefit is that I got financing, but I'm willing to pay you what your house is worth. If you're willing to wait around for me to do my financing stuff.
Interesting.
I think what people are struggling with in San Diego is being house poor, and those that are qualifying just because their dreams to own a home, but they don't want to be house poor where everything's going to that and they don't have money for anything else. Yep. And there's the other side of the equation, which is really we're turned into a region of haves and have-nots, which are those that have higher incomes and things like that, and that can easily afford the home. They'll be able to get the home. So there's, I think, two groups of population here. You were talking about rents. Rents are up 1/3, 33% since 2010.
Wow.
That's a crazy number.
It's a crazy number.
And have incomes matched?
No,
Right.
Of course not.
Right.
They've been stagnant. And when you consider in the student debt and the fact that at least half the people spend at least 35% of their income on rent, and then you put in the student debt, there's no rooms for savings, let alone a savings account or put into your investment portfolio as a retirement, save up for a down payment. So this is kind of the struggle that we're seeing with this haves and have-nots, because most of what we're receiving in income is going to housing costs.
Or not to even to mention that fresh new car that you got to get laced out with the rims and the beats and the 18s in the back. Or was that just Dave?
I read that last night. The average sales price of a car was like $36,000. The amortization period was 68 months, which is super long,
right,
and like $500 a month.
Yeah.
That's
and
crazy.
that's if they even buy, because most kids lease. See what he just went real on that. See, that's why he's a good partner. He went and took it on the real side.
Yeah.
But that's a good point, though. So let's talk about the development tip, right? So your partner, Mr. London, was asked to speak on the Lilac Hills.
Oh, okay.
The debacle.
Oh, you've done your research.
It took place. Well, we were all watching that. You know, it was on our voting ballot last year, right? So inventory's down 24%. Okay. Now Trump is a developer. You know, so there was little circles of interest that seemed to think that, at least in our domain of real estate and development, that he might be good for us, at least in the short term anyway, while the dust kind of settled. He's already came out that he's for less regulation, smaller government. So what do you think about him? Do you think he's less regulatory land use and zoning, or more? And what effect is this going to have on our problem with inventory and the affordability that we're talking about right now?
I don't think anything, because again, he's at the national level. Most of this is controlled at the state level. Yeah, he's slashing the EPA, and so
right,
you know, I guess you can develop with it a lot easier. But by the time even that all worked through the system, he'll probably be out of office in 4 years anyways. I mean, a lot of it has to do with the state regulation. It has nothing to do with what Trump is. And in terms of being a real estate developer, you know, the one thing with real estate developers too, while I work with them, is we've got this guy running a country, and with developers, there's always maybe an alternative deal that might be better. And I kind of see that, you know, with that administration too.
Yeah. Jeremy Beck, by the way, co-founder of the Greenhouse Group, mortgage planning extraordinaire. I think that's on your card.
At the E. Yeah,
flanked,
that's the E.
And it's got the little accente to make it like French or whatever. Dave Hewson, of course, partner also of the Greenhouse Group mortgage planning extraordinaire liaison. Does that even work?
It fits on my card.
It fits. Okay,
yeah,
good. That's just a little bit longer than everybody else's card. You guys are tasked with the of buyers to put together what you affectionately have come to call a mortgage plan. Not just a pre-approval, but somebody's at A, they need to get to B, what's the steps they got to get in between those 2 points of reference, and then actually executing on getting there. So a lot of your clients are military folks, right? Still the number one defense biggest economy in our country. I mean, in our county. I think it's 20% of our GRP. Our gross regional product, about $23 billion defense spending. So Trump has said he's planning on taking, I think, a lot of that discretionary budget and applying it right over to the military game. And this, in some efforts, could double that number. This could have a direct effect on how many kids, right, and boys and girls are signing up for our military service, coming here and looking to plant roots. Right? So how do you see that playing out, right? So if we get an influx of people coming in for that purpose, what will this mean for entry-level home sales?
Dave?
Entry-level home sales. Well, first thing that comes to mind is the veterans applying for the loan. Find that the transitory nature of their enrollment in the military means that not a lot of them know they're going to be around in the community for more than maybe a couple of years. But we find that the ones that are here are usually the ones that are married and have kids. And they know they're going to be here for a while, or they're nearing the end of their service and looking to transition into civilian life.
Yeah.
So as far as the effect on home prices, I mean, I think it really what has to happen is they need more options. And that's our biggest challenge, right, with the inventory. So as far as home values, I mean, more people, more demand, I would say they would be going up. The great thing about the VA home loans is that they allow military to purchase at the higher limits because of all the advantages that they get by pursuing that type of loan. VA is the loan that we all wish we had access to.
Right. Because, quickly, just in case people aren't aware of that.
Well, there's four big major points, which are 100% financing, no mortgage insurance, reduced closing costs, and I'm spacing on the fourth one.
You're leaving it as a cliffhanger.
Well,
Yeah.
no, actually what it is the
Building.
most competitive
Building.
interest rates
There we go.
out there. So
Yeah. No, we love it.
Dave's polished at this game. He knows how to leave people.
4 points.
Yeah, 4 points right there. This is a.
You mind if I do?
I would love. And I expected you to because I know you're
you have
campaigning
notes
for
there.
beer to be the number one
I
economy
kicked
soon
you.
enough.
You didn't
but-
feel me kick you?
Yes. Go ahead, dear.
So what's interesting is at the Greenhouse Group, we're certified military home loan specialists, which means that we are acutely prepared to help the military families with their loans. The VA loans are amazing products. They do have their own little quirks. One of the things that I find that anytime I have the opportunity to talk about is that there's a little bit of I think a misunderstanding about the VA loan, and that it's harder to do, or there's higher underwriting qualifications. So from the sellers and the real estate agents on the other side, one thing that's super important to know is that they're not any harder to do. In fact, they offer a lot of flexibility, and they tend to be a little bit easier. Another misconception is that people think they're capped at a certain loan amount. That's just the 100% mark. But you can spend millions of dollars and use your VA loan, and it's still very effective, especially with the interest rates the way they are.
Yeah, good point. If Trump was here hanging out with us, he's probably tweeting live right now, lambasting the show, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure he's on it.
Dave in his crosshairs right now. What kind of pants are those? I don't even. Who wears pants like that to a show like this? This is ridiculous.
That's a
My
interesting-
pants?
Yeah.
Trump.
And wait, what did I turn into? Like the Goodfellas guy? I don't know where that accent came from.
Gonna be Jersey.
But he always said that he was great on affordability. I'm the greatest on affordability, right? With his record in developing. But the truth is, it was more, it seemed to be for his rich friends, affordability, not necessarily the game we're kind of talking about here. We had Nikki Cometa from Affirmed Housing on the show a couple months back, and she painted a real challenging picture of affordability in San Diego, not just for right now, which we're all feeling the brunt of, but in the not too distant future, kind of leading into the 2020s. So affordability index is down 9% from this time last year, right? And that's the triangulation of the three most important points there. So magic wand, Nathan, how do you fix that?
I don't think we'll be able to fix it, but I think we've got to make every best effort to build as much housing as we can,
Right.
to give people more housing opportunities, because
Right.
it strictly is, and it is supply and demand. It's simple economics. We need more to bring prices down. Will we ever get there? I don't think so. We have too much regulation in the state. We have too many hurdles. It takes too long to deliver projects. I mean, if you have a piece of land or some entitlement going through the entitlement process, I mean, that's 5 years alone to get something off the shelves and sticks into the ground and,
Right.
and start digging for the construction. So I don't think we'll ever solve that. I think one of the solutions is we need to start talking about policies that make housing affordable. Not affordable housing. I'm not talking about the low income, the very low income housing, which is more government housing, and we need it for those families that make $50,000 or less or $60,000 or less. I'm talking about the middle class. I'm talking about housing that's affordable. This is the class that's being squeezed.
Right.
If you look at what's being developed in San Diego for the last, let's go 5 years, you have really expensive stuff up here, and then you have really cheap stuff down here, which is affordable housing. And then the stuff in the middle class is really skinny. So we've got this hourglass shape that's going on in San Diego, and it's the middle class that's being squeezed. And the middle class I'm talking about is if you're a dual income household making 6 figures, and you might be a nurse and a school teacher, or a firefighter, or any combination of those kind of services, is how can you afford a home if you're in 6 digits, income? You can't, because homes are $600,000 plus. You go into the North County, anything new is over $1 million. You can't make that hurdle.
Yep.
Yet we need all these kind of jobs in here. So I think it's time we should at least shelve the conversation of affordable housing, because that will always happen. We'll always have those low income requirements, and it will always be built. And now politicians need to start thinking about, and they are, and City of San Diego City Council has been talking about how can we make housing affordable for that middle class. And it's all about identifying those housing opportunities. I'll tell you right now that New York and San Francisco have affordable housing programs for 6-digit incomes. So if we want to talk about really helping the middle class, I think we need to expand, San Diego Housing Commission and all those regulatory agencies, and let's start talking about affordability for 6-figure incomes.
What's interesting about that is the trickle-down piece, right? So who's going to be in that arena? Brand new college graduates, people who are new to the workforce, but super important to companies like Qualcomm and big industry. So you want newly educated people who are going to have those, we're calling them entry-level jobs, but entry-level jobs in the high-tech industry. And so what happens is if you don't have housing for those people, then the companies that want that type of job or employment are moving. I mean, I have conversations with people all the time where we get them pre-approved. They're close, they make decent money, but they're like, you know what, I can go to another state and buy a mansion for that.
You're exactly right. So if you look at all the suburbs out in the eastern part of the U.S., so Raleigh-Durham, you've got, Houston's a good market, Austin's a good market. All of these are affordable markets because they have affordable suburban homes.
Right.
That's where the millennials are going. That's where you see the biggest increase in home ownership rates, are because millennials are starting to move out of the city and they're starting to couple and have families, and they want to go to those job markets that have those levels of affordability. We've got this problem of there's a big disparity and a disconnect with who's occupying housing in San Diego. So people who should be moving up, right, are not, because the people that should be moving out, baby boomers,
right,
are not. You go to North County, and I know plenty of people that are 60 years plus, sitting in a 5-bedroom home. The kids are gone,
yep,
and they just say, I don't know where to go because anything else that I can buy is more expensive than what I own. So I'm going to sit in my 5-bedroom house and just sit there, and maybe some people will come and visit. And it's this concept that I've termed house hoarding. People are holding on to their homes because they don't have anywhere else to move to. So now let's just do the trickle-down effect, right? The people that should be moving up into bigger homes are not, because the retirees are not moving out. And so the millennials aren't going to be able to move into their starter home. And it all just kind of trickles down. So everything's just kind of frozen because there's just not enough housing options in our region.
That's like a powder keg. You brought up so many really good points. Like all of these things should spawn a healthier economy. And I'm generalizing all these things, meaning collateralizing what we talked about and things we're not even have time to discuss here in some of the Trump-conomics policy. But it should create more jobs, at least in the short term anyway. San Diego's big on construction, right? I mean, we're a self-employed community for sure, and so that should boost. We got the military thing, which is probably going to grow. We're going to have all this groundswell pressure coming up. Maybe the powder keg to discuss is to loop back into what did we learn about the Lilac Hills failure?
Before we go to that, I had one other thought that
Please.
Is the most important thought. Is I get asked the question all the time of, I don't want housing development. It doesn't matter to me. I have a job. But what people are missing is this is now an economic crisis.
Right.
It's for the economy, and because we see those hotbeds of those other cities that I've been naming in the East Coast, those are the hotbeds for job growth. Is we'll see people trickle out of San Diego for better job opportunities, and then the person who has their job today could be affected by that. And that's why it matters to everybody.
Poetry
and
snaps.
nobody's understanding that right now. They just think, well, I have my house, I have my job, I don't care. But metropolitans in cities and everything is always, and yes, we've got sunshine and it's a great place to live, but if you want to make housing really expensive, maybe we just become a retirement community like Santa Barbara, and a very small portion of the population will be okay with that. But the majority of the population that wants to raise their kids here, have housing opportunities for their kids, have job opportunities for their kids, and keep it all intact, we've got to learn how to, address these economic issues because it is affecting the economy. It's not just a housing thing.
Nathan, I think they refer to that as a healing community up there.
One thing that Dave's doing, it's more on a micro level, so it doesn't have a large impact.
Right.
But if he can't get you a loan, he'll actually let you move into his house with him and his wife and have a bedroom for free. So there's like 2 or 3 families.
And I think he's the only one with a basement in San Diego too.
Right. But
so that's a really cool thing you're doing. And I'm glad we're having the opportunity to share that with the public at this point.
Yes.
And what was your address again?
And I can hear my wife calling me right now. Yeah.
Esteemed panel, Nathan Bader,
Very.
principal, London Grove. I appreciate that take. It's an interesting. I brought up the premise, and I'd love to still get back to the Lilac Hills lesson. But one thing that we did learn on that previous show when Nikki came on and talked about it was that it's a classic NIMBY type of attitude. Like, nobody wants the affordable housing stuff going on in their backyard, right? They want to indemnify their values. There was an ideal that they bought into, and hell or high water, they want to try to protect that. Now that they're in, you're not, now that they're in, they're taken care of. And they don't understand that there's a much bigger, more expansive discussion that's not being had about the disintegration of that middle class. And if you move into the haves and the have-nots, and the divide seems to be growing like a chasm right now, and it's happening locally as well, you're missing the point of the fact that that's what the basis and the foundation that's rooted in your success is in the first place.
Right. Yeah. And you were mentioning Lilac Hills Ranch, and the problem with I think just community plans and general plans altogether are they're plans, and they become outdated the day after they come out.
Interesting.
Because the market is so dynamic, and it's always changing, and it's always market forces. So it's really hard to say, well, this is the plan, and this is only where growth should go, because that's the plan, because the market is completely different. And when we do plans, we don't understand the intricacy of the land that we want to develop. Maybe it's not available. Maybe the seller doesn't want to sell it. Maybe it's not feasible. Maybe it's not enough density. There's a lot of questions. So that's why plans have to be flexible to accommodate properties as long as they're consistent with the plan.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to opine on, Lilac Hills and was it good, was it bad, whatever. I do think we're kidding ourselves if we're saying that because Lilac Hill Ranch doesn't exist, that people will find other housing opportunities in San Diego.
Right.
No, I think it was a cutoff to go to Temecula. But if you look at how we do our engineering studies and the greenhouse gas emissions and everything, they say, oh no, you're putting a project up by the 15, you're adding more greenhouse gases. But there's no subtraction but for that project, they'd be in Temecula and creating even more greenhouse gases. That's not how the studies work, and that's not how things are looked at. But like I said, I think we're kidding ourselves.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that, our growth has mainly been single-family homes, 60% historically. Going forward for the next 35 years, it's only going to be 18%. So 82% of our growth is going to be multifamily homes. And it's a figure that I don't buy, and I've never bought. And there's a lot of people out there that talk about the millennials. They want urban, they want small, they're the shared economy, they'll just Uber around, they don't want to own anything. And they're all wrong. That's a temporary classification for millennials. It might be good for today, but what research is now showing from big institutions and Urban Land Institute is that they're now growing up. They're becoming families. And like I said earlier, they're moving out of New York and San Francisco, and they're going to the suburbs, and they all want to live in the suburbs. And anybody that says that's what millennials want, I think it's a disservice to population growth, because it's only one segment of the millennials. It's more complicated than that. It's not just about shared economy and urban and walkable and all that. Everybody's expectations change as their life environment changes, and we have to have housing opportunities to reflect that. And so the fact that we're not having single-family home creation is going to be a pretty much bad thing in terms of housing prices. I've always said, if I had a bunch of money and I was an investor, I would be going and buying every single family home I can close to the 5 in North County, because we're not delivering any types of homes like that. And I just think housing prices are going to be astronomically more expensive than anywhere else in the region. And here's the other thing, is most of the job growth is Carlsbad. And the second biggest market is UTC.
Yeah.
And these are high-paying jobs.
Right.
So if you're working at Qualcomm, or if I'm a recruiter for Qualcomm, it's going to be a very difficult sell to say, yeah, please come join our firm, but we don't have any new homes for you, but I've got a great multifamily unit for you in Vista.
Yeah.
You know, how does that
You can
affect
bring
the
your
economy?
wife and your kids, and you
Right.
guys will love it. Yeah.
So when I talk about it going to the highest bidder and cash transactions and all that stuff in North County, it's really turning into the haves and have-nots. And I just think because it's going to become a commodity, and we're going to see prices get very expensive up there.
And that's not even to make mention of the fact that construction costs are through the roof right now. So to buy a brand new home, it's always going to be more than dabbling in a resale environment. And then the fact that developers are better off to build things to rent the doors versus to sell them, because then they don't have to worry about that 10-year lawsuit game.
Right.
And that whole thing going on too. But I
So
want to
I'm sorry, the last tricky thing is, by all means, we'll have a millennial population that maybe is that shared economy and wants urban. And that's going to be downtown in the urban ring.
Right.
And 100% will have people that want that city lifestyle.
Right.
But my whole point is we can't just take that to the bank and say that's all we're going to do. It has to be a balance of growth in our
at the
region.
cost of where they're going to be in their next iteration
Exactly.
after they do modify out of that.
So it occurs to me that we're talking a lot about things that are outside of our control, right? These are big picture items. We can vote on policy change and we can talk about stuff like that. But from a perspective for me in what I can do in the community, this is important, right? So now we have a perspective when someone comes to me and they say, you know, do I want to buy right now or do I want to wait? And if I want to buy right now, how can I best get into that stream? Because we don't see the writing on the wall that prices are going down. We don't see the writing on the wall that rates are going down. So it just means that housing is going to be more expensive. Whether you're renting, whether you're buying, period. So if that is the general consensus, then what do we do about it? Well, for us, what we try to do is we engage our clients as early as possible to create that plan to help them buy in the current economy.
Right.
Because if you wait 2 years, you may not be able to do that. Or your job may not exist in a position where you're allowed to do that or that sort of thing. So for us, the plan is imperative, and the ability to get into a position where we are talking to people early enough to create that entire vision through.
Yeah, so let's do a little rapid fire here, right? So we'll end with this. Dave, I want to hit you with this. New listings are down. Pending sales are up, right? We saw that kind of go down, right? So the inventory's shrinking, but everybody's like, oh my God, I better get something because the rates might get worse. We've got volume is up and the average price is all up, and that should be obvious considering the first point. So in your 2017 forecast, with respect to taxes, there's a lot of things on the line right now. We've got mortgage interest, which is in the crosshairs again. 1031 exchanges are being talked about. Property tax deductions, capital gains, that protection might even be pulled back a little bit. Like, where is the give? Like, so if this is all kind of pulling back and pushing against the market right now, where do you think the little, sprout from the bottom of the forest fire rubble is going to come in the 2017 real estate market?
I think we'll see the return of adjustable rate mortgages.
Yep.
I think, and these are not the adjustable rate mortgages that we saw in the previous decade. They're more regulated now. They don't have the risk that the previous ones did, and they're good loans. That's the thing, is they got a real bad name in the latter part of the previous decade with the mortgage meltdown and the banking crisis. So you heard a lot of bad press about adjustables, but they're good products, and they're safe.
They got blamed for a lot of that stuff. Gerald, I'll throw it over to you, rapid fire. Do you see mortgages getting tighter or looser with the Trump economy?
Well, I mean, the talk about the CFPB and tearing apart some of the regulatory pieces that has made banking a little bit more challenging. I think what we're going to see is easier lending, more flexible products that up till now may have been even fringing on what became illegal for lenders to do, or at least put them at great risk for lawsuit. That flexibility, of course, will help. You mentioned we have a ton of self-employed people here in San Diego.
Right.
They have a really hard time getting loans because of the way their taxes are filed. And so seeing a little bit of flexibility in that would be incredible.
Right. Nathan, so from a regulatory perspective, the Dodd-Frank seems to be, it's on the chopping block right now. I'm curious how you think it'll affect local real estate market, especially because a lot of the purpose of Dodd-Frank in the first place was to get rid of the cowboy capitalism that caused a lot of the problems that you guys just mentioned a second ago.
Well, I think that's a concern. I mean, I don't think any of us have read the 10,000 pages or whatever it is of modifying. Maybe Dave did.
Dave did in the green room.
But anything that compromises the financial integrity, which is our infrastructure, our financial infrastructure of the economy, which are banks.
Right.
Should they be doing that cowboy betting and betting with their own money on risky investments? Absolutely not. I mean, I don't think we can put that at risk again. It's a systemic risk. So, I mean, that's my only comment on that. I haven't read all the pages, but hopefully, I mean, it sounds like they do want to free up some of that ability, but I'd be against anything that, you know, lets any bank put risky money at risky assets.
Yeah. Nathan, I can't thank you enough for coming in and hanging out with us, man.
Thank you for having me.
Truth Radio Live. And how can folks who were inspired by your comments and your depth of wisdom in this capacity reach out to you and get in touch with you?
Well, our website currently is londongroup.com, and you could probably reach me on that,
Because you guys are in topics right now, discussions to buy the domain facebook.com?
Oh, right, yes.
So right now it's...
Yeah, we need a little bit more money, but then, yeah, we'll be good.
Right. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Appreciate you hanging out with us. That was awesome. And then, Jeremy, if your mom would like to reach out to you and potentially do a loan with you in the future, how would she get in touch?
Well, I haven't given her my new number yet, but let's just do email then. Jeremy, Jeremy, at greenmeansgrow.com.
Green means grow. Something
Green
tells me
means
Dave's email is going to be something similar. So, Dave, if somebody was inspired to wear pants to their next show and some running shoes, because apparently he jogged on his way in, how would somebody get in touch with you? Seriously, though, I mean, you're a first-time home buyer expert, just like Jeremy is. So if they were inspired by some of the things you say, what's your best suggestion?
Email.
Yeah.
David at greenmeansgrow.com.
Greenmeansgrow.com. Well, appreciate the roundtable, you guys. A little round of applause.
Yeah, that was fun.
You can clap for yourself. Oh, yeah, we got from the back, from the audience. Yes, appreciate that. Yes, all two of you. And gang, for us, thanks for tuning in. So check us back here a month from today. We'll do our second roundtable of Truth Radio Live. I appreciate you for hanging out. We'll see you next time.